I don't like mirrors. It's almost like there's an unknown world right on the other side. And the person staring at me isn't really me, just an imitator. I know how stupid that sounds, but that's how I feel. But if I keep thinking about it, it just makes me feel sick. As of recording this video, it's technically fall, but you would know from the fact that it's still like 85 degrees here. But despite the heat, I'm going to have my autumnal delights if it kills me. I will slowly cook in my sweater with my PSL and pretend that there are actually seasons where I live. So, uncooperative weather be damned, like most people, I associate autumn with coziness. Things you love that are familiar and comforting. You want to snuggle in on the couch with a hot beverage of choice. You want to go to pumpkin patches or apple picking. You want to watch spooky Halloween-y movies. You want to go to a fog-covered town all at once familiar and surreal. You want to face horrors from your subconscious made manifest. You want to be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name. Anyway, hey you! Welcome back to the Horror Diner, where we serve up piping hot horror right to your table. I'm Spooky Pie, your waitress, your chef, and your new friend who's going to sit down and talk about horror with you. If this isn't your first time visiting us, welcome back! It's great to see you again! But if it is your first time, here at the Horror Diner, we talk about all forms of horror media. From books to movies, podcasts, TV shows, video games, if it's horror, it's on the table. But wait, there's more. We're also going to cook up a little something that goes with the piece of media we're talking about. Now, not every piece of media we cover features a dish in it, or has a clear theme that translates easily to food, so some dishes might end up being more of a stretch than others, but we're going to do our best. For our fourth trip to the Horror Diner, today we're going to be talking about Konami's 2003 absolute masterpiece of a video game, Silent Hill 3. And, my very weird intro to this video aside, the Silent Hill franchise, and specifically Silent Hill 3, actually are kinda comfort food to me. I know I've mentioned in earlier videos that I was in my late teens when I truly got into horror, and while I'd seen other people play horror games like the first Resident Evil, it wasn't until I was around 16 that I picked up my first horror game, which was not Silent Hill, it was Fatal Frame, which, believe me, I plan to make a video about. But Fatal Frame kind of opened the floodgates for me and survival horror games. And while I did enjoy the Resident Evil series, coming off of Fatal Frame, that wasn't really the vibe I was going for. But then there was Silent Hill, with just the most chef kiss of ambiance, Akira Yamaoka just doing the absolute most on these soundtracks, and surreal storytelling that doesn't rely strictly on combat. I loved the first two games. Harry was a great protagonist, just out here trying to dad his way through a nightmare world. And James, well, James is kind of an awful person, but we wouldn't have Pyramid Head without him. Blows a kiss to Silent Hill for Pyramid Head. But then, I got to Silent Hill 3. The clouds parted, the sun shone down and gave me Heather Mason, my favorite protagonist in a horror game ever. A female protagonist in a lineup of white male protagonists with alarmingly similar haircuts. Heather was down to earth. She looked like an average girl I might be friends with. Fashionable in an early 2000s kind of way, but not glossy and glamorous. Heather was blunt, got angry and lashed out, but was also kind and compassionate, all while standing up for herself. She was a teenage girl, just like, at the time, me. And that wasn't something I was used to seeing in video games. I was obsessed, and Silent Hill 3 immediately became, and still is, my favorite entry in the franchise. Not to mention it features an opening sung by Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who's probably the coolest person I've ever met. And it goes so hard. But before we get too deep into that, we've been sitting here for a while and it looks like you're getting hungry. Let's head on into the kitchen and fix you up something to eat. Today, in honor of Heather's iconic one-liner, we're making bread. But I wanted to make fun bread, so we're making pesto pull-apart bread, following a recipe by Fresh April Flowers, which you can find linked in the description. So, as the kids say, let's get this bread. We're going to begin with the dough and then put together the pesto. So start by gathering your bread dough ingredients. You will need 2 1/4 cups all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon salt, 1 tablespoon sugar, 1/2 cup warm whole milk, 1 large egg at room temperature, 2 tablespoons warm water, 2 tablespoons unsalted butter, melted but shown here whole because of aesthetics, and 1 1/2 teaspoons active dry yeast. put your warm water into a mixing bowl. I was smart this time and just used the dang stand mixer bowl since we're going to be going over to the mixer later anyway instead of getting 2 huge bowls dirty. Then add the yeast and the sugar to your warm water and whisk them all together. Then leave it alone to activate for 10 minutes. Once the yeast mixture is bubbly and active, go ahead and add in your milk, butter, salt, and egg. And once again, whisk together your ingredients. Now we're going over to the stand mixer. If you don't have one, just mixing the dough with a wooden spoon is totally fine. But if you do, make sure it has the dough hook connected. Add in 1 cup of flour and mix until the dough comes together. Then slowly add in the rest of the flour and mix until it is combined and the dough is coming away from the sides of your bowl. Turn the dough out onto a lightly floured surface and knead for 8 to 10 minutes. If your dough is really sticky, add a little flour in 1 tablespoon at a time. When you're done, it should basically be the consistency of Play-Doh. Take the same mixing bowl and either spray it with non-stick spray or coat it with olive oil. Put the dough back into the bowl and flip it a few times to make sure it's coated. Then, cover the bowl with a lid or a clean dish towel and let the dough rise somewhere warm until it's doubled in size. The recipe author says she likes warming the oven up to 200 degrees and then shutting it off and leaving the door cracked with the bowl inside. But my oven is way too small for that. Anyway, you'll want to give it about 90 minutes. Since that's going to be a while, let's kill time by making our pesto. You can absolutely use store-bought, but I enjoy being extra, so I want a pesto from scratch. For the pesto, you're going to need a food processor, 2 cups fresh basil, 1/2 cup pine nuts or walnuts, 1/3 cup grated Parmesan cheese, 3 cloves of garlic, but as I mentioned in my last video, you can save yourself some trouble and just buy pre-minced garlic because why not love yourself, 1/4 teaspoon salt, and 1/2 cup olive oil. Combine your basil, pine nuts, and garlic in the food processor bowl. Process until all your ingredients are combined. It'll be chunky, but that's okay. Remove the lid of the processor and add in your olive oil and process again until all the oil is combined in. Remove the lid once more and add your salt and Parmesan cheese. Pulse a few times until that's combined too. Now we have pesto! But that went pretty fast, so we still have a lot of time to kill before our dough is done. So time to find something to do with yourself for the rest of that hour and a half or so. This could be a good time to make sure you're paying your restaurant workers for all the hard work they do keeping this place running. I think we all know this place would fall apart without Salem's careful supervision. It could also be a good time to familiarize yourself with the source material and get in some light reading. You don't know, there could be a test later. Now that the dough is finished rising, punch it down and turn it out onto a lightly floured surface. Divide the dough into 12 equal portions. Once you have done that, stretch each portion into a disc roughly 4 inches in diameter-ish. If you wonder what the heck I keep doing, my dough cutter has a ruler on the bottom, so I'm measuring my dough discs. As you make your discs, lay them out on a flat surface. This part takes heckin' forever, but you can do it. I believe in you. Look at all those little flat guys. Now, grease a loaf pan for our bread and go get that pesto we made a little bit ago. Spread about 1 tablespoon of pesto in the center of each disc. Then fold it in half and place it with the flat side down into your loaf pan. Repeat that for all 12 of those bad boys. You'll need to do a bit of squishing to get them all in, but that's okay. Drizzle the top of the loaf with some olive oil and tuck that little cutie in for a nap. Let him sleep for about half an hour or until it has risen. Once your dough is risen, make sure your oven is heated to 350 degrees and go ahead and bake your bread for 40 to 45 minutes, depending how fast your oven is. Once it's all golden brown on top, go ahead and take it out. It looks so good, but let's let it cool down a bit. And while our cute bread is taking a moment, let's head over to my office. Hey, we're in the office now. Neat! So this video is a little bit different than the ones before it, since those all talked about a piece of media you could go into totally blind. But unlike other Silent Hill games where you can just jump in without previous game knowledge, Silent Hill 3 is a direct sequel to Silent Hill 1, set 17 years later. So before we can talk about Silent Hill 3, we gotta quickly talk about Silent Hill 1. I'm going to be completely spoiling both games in this video as a heads up. Even though they're both a couple decades old at this point, and I feel like a lot of people who haven't played the game still know a lot of the beats due to cultural osmosis, I'll put a timestamp below for you to skip to if you want to dig out an old console or a good Let's Play and absorb the story unspoiled. For everyone else who is still here after that disclaimer, let's get into it. Silent Hill 1 starts in the past. Harry Mason and his wife find a baby in a coffin. Cut to the present of the game. Harry's wife is dead and the baby is a kid now. Her name is Cheryl, and her and Harry are driving to Silent Hill for a vacation. Why would you vacation in Silent Hill? Beats me, but it happens again in Silent Hill too, so maybe their tourism board is just phenomenal. Anyway, Harry is driving late at night and a girl wanders into the road. He swerves to avoid her and crashes the car. When he wakes up, Cheryl is gone and everything is foggy. Harry explores a little, sees some monsters, and passes out. He wakes up in a diner where he meets Sybil. Sybil is not relevant to Silent Hill 3, and she's a cop. More monsters, more fighting. Harry thinks Cheryl's at the school. She's not. He checks the church instead. He meets Dahlia Gillespie. Ooh, she's shady as hell. She's also going to impact directly and indirectly the whole damn series, but she gives him a charm that is supposed to counteract the darkness. He gets the hell out and goes to the hospital of all places because Dahlia, who for some reason seems trustworthy, says to do it. No Cheryl, but we meet Dr. Kaufman, who is an ass, and Lisa Garland, who is lovely and sad and deserves better. Subscribe for my campaign for justice for Lisa Garland. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's very foggy in here. Anyway, he finds Dahlia again. She tells him the girl on the road he almost hit is a demon, and if he doesn't defeat the demon, his daughter, Cheryl, will be killed. We briefly see Lisa again. She's going through it and says she's not supposed to leave. Harry meets back up with Sybil Bennett. She's got a horrible parasite in her now. Oh no! She can be saved here or not. It doesn't impact what we're talking about in this video, but does impact what ending you get. FYI. Whichever way Harry deals with Sybil, he keeps going and sees the girl he almost ran over with his car. The charm Dahlia gave him automatically neutralizes and traps her. Dahlia reappears, and in a surprise to no one, tells Harry she tricked him into confronting the girl, and that the girl is Alessa, Dahlia's daughter. Harry blacks out. When he wakes up, he's back in the hospital. Kind of. And Lisa is there, but it's bad. She says she's just like them, and starts bleeding down her face. Harry books it out of the room, but he hears her crying, so he peeks back in. Lisa's diary is left, and it triggers a flashback / gives us a plot dump. Alessa has been hospitalized here. Dr. Kaufman proves why he's awful. He got Alessa addicted to drugs, and in this flashback can be seen talking with Dahlia and 2 cult leaders about the rebirth of God.
A little demon
baby. A little devil baby.
A little devil baby, perhaps?
Don't worry. Whatever you choose, Kaufman dies in the finale. So there's that. Harry gets the heck out. He finds Dahlia. And maybe Sybil if you saved her. As well as a person in a wheelchair who is Alessa and Cheryl combined into one body, referred to in the game as the Incubator, as well as an incorporeal version of Alessa. Major exposition dump time via flashback. We learn that Dahlia sacrificed her daughter to the fire in a ritual that her cult believes would birth a god.
Devil baby.
But Alessa didn't die and split her soul into 2 parts to keep the god from being born. This other part of her soul is the baby that Harry and his wife found. Cheryl. Well, Cheryl got to be a normal kid. Alessa has been here suffering in agony, so she called Cheryl back to Silent Hill to restore her power and undo the cult's plan. But this didn't work out so well, and with the 2 halves of Alessa back together, the conditions are met for the god to be born.
This is a great location for a devil baby.
From here on, we're going to assume you got one of the 2 good endings, because Silent 3 doesn't happen without it. I need y'all to know that Salem's outside the door, and he is so pissed off that he can't be in the office right now because I'm using all this fog. The god entity emerges from the incubator and is the final boss. Harry defeats the entity, though not before it kills Dahlia, and the whole place starts collapsing. The incubator helps Harry escape and gives him a baby. The baby is her soul resplit, so Cheryl, reborn. Anyway, this baby is Heather Mason, the protagonist of 3. Circle. Arts and crafts. Meaning, in a sense, Alessa, Cheryl, the incubator, which is kind of just Alessa put back together again, and Heather are all the same person. Kinda.
Is this Burgess Meredith again?
Yes. Anyway, Harry escaped Silent Hill with the baby. And Sybil, depending on if you saved her, and goes on to raise her as Heather, which means we can finally talk about Silent Hill 3. Good Lord. The game opens with alternating scenes of a decrepit spinning flat ride and a bloody bandaged monster shaking. We then see our heroine, Heather, entering the gateway to an amusement park called Lakeside Amusement Park. She seems confused as to how or why she's here and how or why she has a knife in her hand. Also, it's Silent Hill, so of course, it's full of fog. Like my office, thank you. It's like I planned that. She makes her way into the amusement park, passing mascot costumes covered in blood and what looks like cages with corpses in them. Everything in the abandoned park is decrepit and rusting. Making her way into the building at the heart of the park, the vibe immediately changes from eerie to threatening, as discordant noises and moans are heard and monsters begin to appear. This persists as she exits the building, as the entire park now has this same threatening aura. She eventually runs into a roller coaster to escape the monsters, and as she begins walking down the track in search of an exit, a roller coaster car comes hurtling down the track, presumably killing her. She wakes up in what looks to be a diner, and after musing over a locket her father gave her, goes to a nearby payphone and calls her said father, Harry Mason. I'm not grabbing the board again. She's immediately approached by a detective named Douglas Carter, who says he needs to talk to her. Heather's not having it and shakes him by entering the ladies' restroom. She discovers an odd red symbol on the bathroom mirror, possibly written in blood. She escapes the bathroom window and into a back alley, shaking the detective off. She enters a door into the back rooms of a shopping mall and makes her way through the rest of the mall, where most of the shops are boarded up or empty. There doesn't seem to be anyone in the mall, and there's a general vibe of unease. When you encounter save points, Heather gets flashes of memories involving altars and holy books. These give you little bits of foreshadowing about where this game is going. Usually. Sometimes Heather just remarks that she hates those things. She squeezes through the opening of a dress shop, which is where she finds the first weapon of the game and also our first hint of something being not right, as this is also where she encounters her first fightable monster. It's a big, gross, fleshy thing. Heather defeats the monster and continues through the mall, fighting off any other monster she finds along the way. And if you enter Helen's Bakery, you get Heather's classic line, "It's bread!" Continuing to the bookstore and solving a couple puzzles, she finds a door that leads out to a hallway where a woman in black is waiting. Heather calls out to her, asking where everyone has gone to. The woman replies, "They've come to witness the beginning, the rebirth of paradise unspoiled by mankind." She follows this up by telling Heather that her power is needed, which Heather is understandably confused by. The woman introduces herself as Claudia, to which Heather, my queen, says, "So what?" And she tells Heather to remember Claudia as well as her true self, the one who will lead us to paradise with blood-stained hands. Heather is overcome with pain and briefly blacks out, and when she comes to, Claudia has disappeared. Trying to escape the mall, Heather finds herself trapped in a service elevator that is descending against her will and surrounded by monsters. She eventually escapes and makes her way out of the rest of the mall, killing any monster she comes across. She encounters the first boss fight of the game, and after defeating it, the mall reverts to looking normal. With the mall back to normal, Heather once again runs into the detective, who admits that Claudia hired him to find her. Heather starts to recall something from her past and runs off to the subway to escape the detective. While not decaying, the entire subway station appears to be empty. She finds a newspaper clipping about a man who died when he was run over by the subway. Call this foreshadowing. Making her way down to the Bergen Street platform, she encounters the part of the game that I rage quit when I first played it. Because in order to get the train you need to arrive, you have to jump down on the tracks and run towards the door in the tunnel, and if you don't get her back on the platform really quick, the train comes and turns you into jam. Younger me had to go do a lap and then come back to this. That's how much it made me angry. But anyway, a non-smushed Heather boards the subway train that did not kill her, and when she eventually exits it, the station, which she finds herself in, is gross and decaying, and parts of it look like raw meat. And the parts that aren't meaty are still spooky and falling apart. She enters an office building from the subway and deals with a series of monsters, jump scares, and light puzzles, finding items and weapons as she goes, until she ultimately reaches a bathtub that fills with blood when it turns on. Heather falls unconscious, and when she wakes, she's in an area even more gross and even more covered in blood. Heather finds a photo of her that says, "Find the Holy One, kill her," on the back. And the nearby save point reveals that she's now in a mental clinic. Exiting this area triggers a cutscene. She finds a man in a psychiatrist's office. It looks weirdly pretty normal compared to how gross everything else has been. He seems to know who she is, greeting her by saying, "Heather, that's what they call you now, isn't it?" He introduces himself as Vincent, insisting that he's on Heather's side. Vincent claims to have no affiliation whatsoever with Claudia, who was brainwashed by that crazy old hag, before clarifying that the crazy old hag in question is Heather's mother, Dahlia. Which is only kind of right, but we don't need to bring the chart back again. Heather is understandably confused, but it becomes obvious that she has no idea what he's talking about, Vincent muses aloud that Harry, her father, must have hid the truth from her. Heather comes 2 steps from bashing Vincent's head in when he speaks about her father derogatorily, and he's cowed because even though she's a teenage girl, Vincent is a wimp and Heather could 100% take him. But clearly not having too good of self-preservation skills, Vincent is withholding, telling Heather that he knows everything but it's more fun to not tell her. She eventually gets tired of how absolutely nowhere this is going, and leaves Vincent to his office and his babbling. And after a bit more exploration, she finds the end of the gross meat labyrinth. Yay! Exiting the door, Heather finds herself back in the normal world, and she finally manages to make it back to her apartment building. But when she gets home, all is not well, as she finds her father dead in an armchair in front of the television, clearly murdered. Which, bold choice, killing the protagonist of your first game off-screen, Silent Hill, but what do I know? Heather is, of course, completely distraught and charges out of the apartment to find Claudia. Claudia admits to killing Harry as revenge for 17 years ago. She tells Heather that Harry basically ruined all her plans and then took Heather away from them. She claims she also killed Harry to fill Heather's heart with hatred, and tells her one day she will understand why. Claudia gabs on again about how Heather needs to remember who she really is and tells her that she will birth a god and build eternal paradise.
Devil baby?
Heather tries, understandably, to shoot Claudia, but Claudia reveals that she had ordered a monster to kill Harry and tells Heather to find her in Silent Hill, fucking off to make Heather have a boss fight with the thing that killed her dad. After defeating the monster, she returns to her apartment to find the detective from earlier. He is unhelpful and she is angry, but he helps her take Harry to his room, cover him in a sheet, and put flowers on him since she has no way to give him a decent burial. The detective asks Heather what she'll do now, and she replies, "I'm going to Silent Hill." He asks her the very stupid question of if she thinks that's safe, and she tells him of course it isn't. But what else is she supposed to do? What other choice does she have? And how else is she gonna murder the shit out of Claudia if she doesn't go to Silent Hill? Heather is the coolest Silent Hill protagonist, possibly horror protagonist in my opinion. Which is right, and I'm not accepting any comments at this time. After trying to talk her out of it, pretty half-heartedly, he offers to give her a ride. The detective mentions running into Vincent, who gave him a map and told him to look for someone named Leonard when she gets to Silent Hill. He also turns over a notebook that Harry had been holding when he died. On the drive, he mentions having been to Silent Hill previously on a missing persons case, and that the town used to be nice and he doesn't know what happened to it. Heather struggles to remember her childhood. She recalls something terrible happening 17 years ago. A woman named Dahlia attempted to awaken an elder god.
I assume this is a direct descendant of Satan? First name devil, last name baby?
To do so, she sacrificed her own daughter. Apparently, the ritual was successful, and the daughter, according to Heather, gave birth to a god.
Devil baby!
The girl had powers, and she was thought to be a witch who could cause things to happen with her mind. But ultimately, the god was defeated by Harry Mason, making Heather muse that it wasn't much of a god if it can be killed by a human being. Heather believes that Claudia is attempting to do the same thing and has chosen her as the sacrifice. She continues her story, saying that after the god had been killed, the girl/the sacrifice reappeared holding a baby. The girl gave the baby to Harry, which was how Harry came to adopt Heather. Not everyone has an unhinged girl with pink hair and a poster board to sum up the first game for them, so this little exposition dump serves to get people who haven't played Silent Hill 1 up to speed, so that they can kinda tell what the heck is going on. But also so Heather can talk about Harry and how much she misses him, and how good of a father he was despite her not being his biological daughter. It's really freaking sad. It's been years since the first time I played this game, and I still can't believe they just killed Harry Mason off screen. But, that's not what this video is about. The scene cuts to a motel room in Silent Hill. Detective Carter says he's going to Leonard's house and tells Heather to head to the hospital. They agree to meet back up at the motel after Heather is checked out the hospital. Heather makes her way through a Silent Hill that will look very familiar to you if you've played the first game, because unlike other games in this series, this one actually shares geography with a previous game. If you don't know, in the other games in the series, the town looks different largely based on the protagonist and what they have going on. But that's something we can maybe talk about in a later video. We're talking about Silent Hill 3 right now. But I will mention that if you explore a bit and don't go straight to the hospital, you can pick up a few Easter eggs for Silent Hill 2. And that's all I'm going to say. Back to Silent Hill 3. Exploring the hospital, Heather finds files on the man named Leonard who had been mentioned before. His file mentions that they suspect him to be mildly schizophrenic. The file also mentions that he seems calm but can become violent when overly excited. She also finds a file for a man named Stanley Coleman, who became obsessive over a particular woman and had violent incidents because of this. Further exploring the hospital, she finds a bunch of creepy letters addressed to her from Stanley. They all have a doll that accompanies them, and all of them say something really disquieting things like, "The day has finally come. That's right, the day when you and I will meet. I was always thinking of you here in this gloomy cell. I never even knew your name or face until today. But now I know. I know you're the one I've been waiting for. And haven't you been waiting for me too? That's why you came to rescue me. Oh, how I love you, Heather. I wanted to give you my prize doll made to commemorate our meeting, the start of this everlasting love. Ah, I can already see your smiling face. And the organization has shut me up in here. They mean to break my will, to make me forget about all that. But I'll stay sane, even if they throw me in here with the lunatics. How about if I stick to this wall? You can peel it off, can't you, with that junk those nasty wenches won't stop using? If a thing has no meaning, there's no reason for it to exist at all. Just as you exist for me. But why haven't you taken my doll with you? Ah, my gift must have embarrassed you. How cute you are, Heather." So, that's casual. The weird letters aren't going to get less weird, sorry to say, and I'm not going to read all of them here. Clearly, half of these letters are hints to puzzles you have to solve to progress, but they are also just super creepy. Please keep in mind that our protagonist is 17 years old. Scattered throughout the hospital, Heather finds multiple other notes that are puzzle hints and deeply inappropriate comments from Stanley. She finally finds Stanley's last note accompanied by a broken doll, implying that a man named Leonard is going to kill him, and telling her to be careful of Leonard because he isn't an ordinary man. As if on cue, shortly after, she finds a ringing phone, and when she answers it, there is a man on the other end who calls her Claudia. And when she insists that she isn't, he tells her not to lie to him and demands to know if she has come to apologize. He goes on to admonish her, or Claudia, for her ridiculous dream of the salvation of all mankind. Heather finally gets him to shut up for 2 seconds and recognize that she isn't Claudia. He apologizes and says his name is Leonard Wolf, the other patient file she'd found, and also the man that Stanley had warned her about. He also happens to be Claudia's father. He seems to be really chill with the fact that Heather hates Claudia and is planning to kill her. He actually offers to help her do this if she breaks him out of the mental hospital. Several meat-filled hallways later, she gets another phone call from a guy who sings happy birthday but claims to not remember her name. He tells her it isn't Stanley or Leonard, but will not give his name. He says that he has a present for her and asks if she would prefer to give pain or receive it, and tells her she can have the one she hates the most. This doesn't actually really go anywhere. A bit after this, Leonard Wolf, of course, turns out to be a boss fight, because Heather can literally not catch a break. After which, she wakes up in a borderline normal-looking part of the hospital with a seal in her hand, and makes her way back to the motel. We cut to a scene of Vincent and Claudia arguing. She's mad at him for leading Heather to Leonard, and Vincent is judgmental and chaotic. It abruptly jumps back to Heather again, making her way through Silent Hill, eventually finding Vincent in the motel room where Douglas is supposed to be. Heather is rightfully angry. Vincent tells her Douglas left the message, the church is on the other side of the lake. He tells her this is where Claudia is, and that she'll need to pass through the amusement park to get there. Which brings us to, in my opinion, the coolest part in the game. Heather enters the amusement park and begins experiencing shark pains. When she recovers, the amusement park has turned into a corrupted version of itself, like the other locations she's been to have done. Heather traverses a roller coaster track and narrowly avoids getting being made into jam. We then smash cut to another cutscene outside of Heather's POV where Douglas is confronting Claudia about how wrong it was to hire him to bring back Heather, because Heather had a good life and was happy with Harry. Claudia says she was only happy because her true self hadn't awakened, and that Heather carries God within her.
Devil baby?
She continues that when Alessa, the Mother of God, awakens, she will usher in eternal paradise. Douglas draws his gun on her, and we cut away before we see if he fires or not. Back to Heather, she makes her way through the theme park, avoiding some instant deaths as long as you're careful, and a haunted house that doesn't serve too much purpose other than to be cool, before finding Douglas. He's injured, saying that his leg is broken. Heather chastises him, lovingly, for getting injured on her behalf, asking him what she will do if he dies, to which he encounters, "What will we do if this god gets born?" Heather, ever iconic, responds, "Come on, how powerful could a god from this dump be?" Heather resolves that with Harry Mason dead, she's the only one who can fix things now, and leaves Douglas to nurse his wounds. She comes across a carousel where she is forced to confront a doppelganger of herself covered in the same corruption as Silent Hill itself. This enemy is called the Memory of Alessa, and she's come to destroy Heather to prevent the prophecy from being fulfilled. Heather has to fight what is basically a shadow version of herself in multiple stages related to the weapons Heather has collected thus far, all while the carousel is spinning. It's aesthetically one of the coolest fights in a video game, in my humble opinion. Past the carousel, she finds a tunnel leading to a church, which, surprise, has Claudia waiting for her. Heather threatens to blow her away, and Claudia goes on about her true self again. Heather tells her that as Alessa, she no longer wants the world to burn, but Heather doubles over in pain, and Claudia tells her the god is growing inside of her, and then just swans off. When Heather recovers, she makes her way through this new area, solving puzzles and dealing with gross meat walls until she finds a library. Waiting for her inside is our favorite Weirdsmobile Vincent. He tells Heather that while he and Claudia share the same religion, they don't agree because he doesn't want God to be born. Heather accuses him of just using her to stop Claudia, and he doesn't deny it and tells her that she's the only one who can stop Claudia. When Heather grows angry with him, he lashes out, saying how dare she judge him. She's the worst person in this room, and that you come here and enjoy spilling their blood and listening to them cry out. You feel excited when you step on them and snuff out their lives. Baffled, Heather asks him if he's referring to all the monsters she had to fight. To which he responds, "Monsters? They look like monsters to you?"
Monsters? They look like monsters to you?
Oh no.
Chills. The first time I played this game, I felt my stomach drop at this line, because what does that mean? Have we really been killing people this whole time? Horrifying. I should also, as a brief aside, mention one of the mechanics of Silent Hill 3. What ending you get is based on a point system. Choices you make, how much damage you take, and importantly, how many monsters you kill are all worth a certain amount of points. On your first playthrough, it's almost impossible to rack up enough points to get anything but the normal/good ending. However, after your first playthrough, if you choose to play again using New Game Plus instead of starting a new game altogether, your points from each previous playthrough carry over. And if you get a certain amount of points, again largely assigned by how much stuff you kill, you are locked out of the good ending altogether and get the bad or possessed ending. You can also get the joke UFO ending, but that's a whole can of worms that doesn't serve the point of this video, so I'm not going to talk about it. Anyway, seeing how horrified Heather looks, Vincent tells her, pretty unconvincingly, "Don't worry, it's a joke." But knowing what we do about the bad ending criteria, I don't know. I'm not sure it completely dispels the implication that Heather has actually been killing people this whole time. Having done his work in giving Heather a crisis, Vincent gives her a book and carries on his way. There's more monsters and exploration and puzzles as Heather goes through a bunch of interconnected hallways in the strangest church that I have ever seen. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Vincent and Claudia are arguing. It's not new ground. He says that Claudia is delusional and her idea of the paradise she's trying to create is twisted. She gets offended and calls him a traitor, yada yada yada. Finally, Heather enters the scene and Vincent yells at her to kill Claudia, which gets him a knife in the back from Claudia. Rip, Vincent. Claudia says that it's time and that she laments Heather not wanting to engage of her own volition, but thanks her for nurturing the god inside her with hatred, and says it's time for man to be released from the shackles of sin that bind them. Heather tries to tell her that there's no way to make paradise from a god created from hate. Claudia continues to prattle on about how she's right and the reckoning, you get the picture. Heather's not having any of it, nor should she be. Vincent, who is bleeding out on the ground, tells Heather to use the seal she got earlier from Leonard, which turns out to be nothing at all, other than some craziness from Leonard Wolf, which Claudia tells Vincent and then proceeds to finish what she started and make sure he's actually dead this time. Heather doubles over in pain as the corruption that we saw in her double during the carousel fight starts to cover her body. Claudia tells her to just give in, but Heather is tough as hell and she shakes it off. She opens the locket that her father had given her, where a small pill resides. Heather swallows it as Claudia looks on in horror. And in a move both horrifying and kinda badass, Heather barfs up the fetus, or god, or whatever. So Claudia, the absolute lunatic, swallows the barf baby, saying she will give birth to the god instead. In a shock to no one, this goes pretty poorly. The corruption overwhelms Claudia and she collapses on the ground, only to be yanked through it by giant monstrous hands, creating a hole in the floor of the church. Because it's a video game, and she has to, because otherwise we don't get the last boss fight or the ending, Heather jumps down the hole. Claudia is dead at the bottom of the hole, and looming over her corpse is a giant monster with Alessa's face. You know, our beautiful bouncing baby.
It looks like a baby if you ask me.
That looks like a big-ass baby.
That's a chunky baby.
It's an annoying fight. God Baby does a ton of damage and also makes fires appear throughout the tiny room you fight her in, so you're dodging both fire and her attacks while trying to also do damage to her. Such fun. Heather eventually defeats the barfed-up god baby,
Devil baby!
and finally gets to have a second to breathe and process and mourn her dad before she picks herself up and heads back out. She finds Douglas on a bench in the park. He says her name, and she tells him to use her real name, that she's going to go by Cheryl now, the name her father gave her. And the credits roll over an image of Heather kneeling at Harry Mason's grave, which is the good or normal ending, which for the purpose of this video, we're just going to accept as the true ending. If you're curious, you can find the other endings on YouTube. And that's Silent Hill 3. So let's talk about it. I brought up in the introduction of this video that a big part of my love for this game comes from the relatability of the heroine. But, fantastical setting and plot aside, it's a deeply feminist story that deals with issues that nearly everyone who has spent time as a woman has encountered at least some of. In Silent Hill, the locations and monsters are based on the protagonist's psyche in the majority of the games. But in Heather's Silent Hill, most if not all of the horror are corruptions of the mundane and ordinary. A shopping mall, nondescript visibly male enemies, etc. Heather's horror, like for many young women, is the real world, which is why Heather's big bad isn't a manifestation of guilt and emasculation like James Sunderland's Pyramid Head, it's societal expectations. It's the church. It's the society that tells her who she should be, and more insidiously, what she can do with her body. The horror of Heather's Silent Hill is literally being a woman. After the opening dream sequence, one of the very first things we are shown in the game is Heather being accosted by a strange man she doesn't know when she's on her own. She literally hides in the woman's restroom and crawls out through a window to avoid this man. Find me a woman who hasn't been made to feel deeply unsafe at some point when she was out on her own. It's a fear any girl can relate to. While Douglas ends up ultimately being pretty okay, it's still a creepy situation. And Silent Hill 3 isn't done there. It throws multiple creepy male figures at Heather that all have their own uncomfortable ideas about her and their own opinions on what role she should play. Vincent expects Heather to be his avenging angel that strikes down Claudia, Leonard expects a good and chaste girl who falls in line with the church, and Stanley, who thank God we never actually see, undoubtedly has his own deeply perverted thoughts on what he thinks Heather should be doing. Society, as mirrored in the town of Silent Hill, and specifically the church that her biological family is deeply entrenched in, has very specific opinions on Heather's autonomy. Much like the pressure to smile, be nice, and act accordingly is real in everyday life, there is a rigid expectation that Heather act a certain way and fit a certain mold. She's expected to become martyr, holy mother, and dark savior all at the same time. It doesn't matter that she just wants to be a normal kid and go to the mall. Digging deeper into that, Silent Hill 3 directly examines the explicit ownership that society and organized religion think that they have over a woman's body and her right to choose. A central bit of the plot is Heather's unwanted, borderline immaculate pregnancy. The church forces her into the role of an unwilling Virgin Mary and goes to insane lengths to make sure she carries that child to term. Does anyone at any point ask Heather's opinion on childbirth or what she wants for her own body? Of course not. It is then a tremendous act of defiance in the final act when Heather aborts the god baby and refuses to be the church's tool. And with the way things are going today in a post-Roe v. Wade being overturned world, where society and religion are claiming rights to a woman's right to choose, there is something deeply empowering, even cathartic, in watching Heather Mason abort the unwanted god baby and then sneer, "looks like God didn't make it," at her abuser who had forced her into this situation. If you're wondering why my video says Silent Hill 3 is more important now than ever, this is why. Heather is a symbol of hope in a world in which hope does not often exist. Heather's story mirrors others, like Rosemary's Baby, where a woman is forced into carrying an unwanted pregnancy to further the goals of an organized religion. But it's also a little complicated in this case, because Heather isn't just the unwilling mother or vessel of the Antichrist, new god, whatever. Because of the circumstances of her own birth, she also, essentially, slots into the role of the reluctant or anti-Antichrist. Since Heather is the prophecy baby from the first game, and when the deity comes into being in Silent Hill 3, it looks remarkably like Alessa, which is also Heather.
It makes sense if you don't think about it. Yeah!
She fits both these roles, so I find her story parallels not only Rosemary Woodhouse of the aforementioned Rosemary's Baby, but more recently Vesper Wright of Rachel Harrison's novel Black Sheep, which I did a short form review of a little while back, and you should totally go watch it if you haven't. Okay, thanks. Rosemary's Baby, a tale of another unwilling mother carrying an unholy baby, treads some of the same ground as Silent Hill 3. Even if it's difficult to fully call the movie feminist, despite how spectacular it is, when you have to reconcile that it was made by a complete monster. But the book wasn't, and Mia Farrow is fantastic, so respectfully, Mr. Polanski, you can eat it. In both the book and the movie, Rosemary is a young woman. while older than Heather, still definitely young. Rosemary's bodily autonomy is completely stripped from her when her douchebag husband essentially offers her womb up for rent to the satanic cult that lives in their apartment building. Satan gets a baby to be brought into the mortal world to wreak havoc, and Rosemary's god-awful husband gets fame and fortune. It should be noted that Rosemary, the one doing the hard work, gets absolutely nothing out of this arrangement. She spends the whole text being gaslighted by everyone around her while she tries to uncover the truth about the cult and what they want with her and her baby. All the while, anyone who shows her kindness or tries to help her gets picked off. It's a claustrophobic story about not just the rights to your own body, but how hard it can be as a woman to just get people to believe you when you tell them something is wrong. Like Heather, Rosemary had no say in this pregnancy, having it forced upon her by a cult in order to bring about the Antichrist, much like Heather's child is meant to be the new god to bathe the world in flame. Both these texts explore the horror of something foreign and malevolent growing within you. While, on the other side of the spectrum, we have Heather's other role, the prodigal daughter called back home to fulfill the prophecy, which brought to mind, as I mentioned, black sheep. Vesper, like Heather, is someone who has escaped a fanatically religious family and just wants to create a normal life for herself. Like Heather, Vesper's actual origin story and lineage is kept from her. Though Vesper is called home for a family wedding and Heather returns for revenge, and Vesper is literally the spawn of Satan, while Heather is kind of her own mom.
I'm my own grandpa. Everybody! I'm my own grandpa.
Both Heather and Vesper reject the role handed to them to act as herald of the apocalypse, even if it means acting in defiance of your biological family and everything that you've known to be true about the world. They are both anti-Antichrists who say, no, that's stupid. What if I just burn this establishment down instead of doing what you tell me? Unlike poor Rosemary, who we last see being doomed to care for the devil baby, Vesper and Heather get relatively happy endings where they get to recover their own bodily autonomy and get the hell out of Dodge, leaving chaos in their wake as they do so, which is another thing that makes Heather so damn important. Heather is strong. While part of it can just be chalked up to technological advancements, in Silent Hill 2, you can feel the difference in how weakly James is swinging his weapon around, as opposed to when you play as Heather, who is fueled by stubbornness and rage. At every turn where Heather is told what and how she should be, she loudly tells them where to cram it. She's imperfect. She gets frustrated with various NPCs and screams at them. She questions why she's in this situation she's in instead of just accepting it as fate. Heather is a fighter. While she is not sensitive and delicate like the heroines of my beloved Fatal Frame series, or a practiced and skilled soldier like Jill Valentine of Resident Evil fame, Heather has grit and heart. She's powered just as much by her love for her father and her belief that the world doesn't have to be awful, as she is by her anger and defiance at the system that wants to oppress her. It's all this that I've mentioned, and probably a few things that I haven't thought to, that makes Silent Hill 3 just as relevant and important, maybe even more so, now than ever. And why Heather, as I've said before, staunchly gets my vote for Best Horror Game Protagonist. If you haven't played Silent Hill 3, please do, it holds up. And if you can't play it yourself because you either don't have access to a PS2 or don't want to dig yours up, I highly recommend Gab Smolders' playthrough. I watched through it as a refresher to make this video because it's way easier to take notes when someone else is playing the video game. She's a delight, covers all the Silent Hill games as well as horror games that were only ever released in Japan, and I'm obsessed with her cat. I'll link her Silent Hill 3 playthrough in the description. Oh hey, look at that! I think our food might be cool enough to eat now. Let's go grab some and I'll meet you back at the diner. It's bread. I love bread. What do you guys think? Do you want to try making this? Do you have a favorite horror protagonist? Drop your thoughts on the game, the food, and what your favorite horror video game is in the comments below. Recipe, recommendations, and citations are all listed in the description. And hey, if you enjoyed your stay here, maybe you think about liking and subscribing to see what we cook up next. And if you want to go even further, we've got a Patreon. A lot goes on in front of and behind the camera to make these videos, and every little bit helps us keep the lights on in the diner and the gas on in the stoves. Patreons get fun perks like getting episodes early, access to the Horror Diner Discord, and possibly even exclusive cat pictures. And patrons of $5 and more get to be part of the Horror Diner Book Club, where every month you vote on a book for me to cover, and you can read along with me, and then I make an exclusive video just for you on Patreon. You can find that linked in the description as well as links to where you can find us at on Instagram, Bluesky, and TikTok. This has been Silent Hill 3. I've been Spooky Pie, and you have been amazing. Y'all come back now, you hear? We like this. Does this look nice and spooky? It smells like Halloween Horror Nights in here. I love the smell of Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh no, from Silent Hill?
Yeah, Pyramid has made it for me.
Oh, that's nice of him.
He's not even in my game.
Do you love Silent Hill 3? Yeah? Do you think it's easily the best entry in the property? Yeah. He says no one's better than Hattie Mason. Ain't no way, ain't no how.
Go on now, get. I think it just started raining.
Oh no! It's too tall!
Well, guess we're using the bottom rack.
Kill her on the back. And the nearby save point reveals that she is now in a mental clinic. I'm gonna have to take that book apart again. Drinking my tea inside. It's so foggy. Salem wants to be let in so bad, but I don't want him breathing in all the fog. It's really sad. Poor Salem.
Salem? Hi, baby. You so comfy? Yeah? Look at those feet.
I don't even know what just fell over. From the future me. Or potentially for my cats to find.
Oh, big yawn. Oh, Salem.